Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Please let the record show that all council members are here with the exception of Council Member Hanson, who is excused. Okay, so for the meeting, Councilmember Merrill is going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then because Councilor Hanson is gone, Councilor Hilton is going to step in for the invocation. We may have some public comment tonight, but I'm not aware of any at this point. Mayor's report, I don't have anything for this meeting. City administration report?
I'll have a couple of
Down there, okay. Consent items for the meeting minutes. Is there any corrections or changes? Very good.
By way of record, we had some corrections that Councilor Hanson had sent in, but it's not in the minutes. It's in some of our documents tonight. Those have been made and they're corrected, so the stuff that will be officially signed is correct. They were just little things. There was like 2 of them in this whole packet, so just so you know, that's been done.
Very good. All right, we'll move on to action items. We're going to have a public hearing to receive and consider public comments regarding the following: amending our Riverdale City budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Remember, this is just where we change things from this last year to match up with what we've actually done. Right, Mr. Carden? And if you want to jump in or make any comments about any of this. I mean, we're just talking about the public hearings for a second, so. The next one's proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Code, Human Resources Manual, the salaries of the City Council Mayor and Justice Court Judge. Next one is non-reciprocal interfund activity transfer resource utilized by the city's general fund as provided by the city's water fund. This is where we transfer money from the city funds to the water fund to make it whole, because the city has been using water all year and now we need to pay the water fund from the cities. All right, the last one is adopting the Riverdale City acting budget for fiscal year 2022-23. Those are all public hearings. Will we do them all consecutively, or will we do them?
You want to address them separately, individually,
okay.
Yeah, so we'll just go down like you've got it there, A, B, C, and D, and just open it up each time.
We'll open and close each one. Okay. Very good. All right, action item number 2, consideration of ordinance 952, amending the Riverdale Municipal Ordinance Code, Title 8, Chapter 6, better clarify, define, and implement sections concerning the conveyance of water rights to the city on development in Riverdale City. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just went back, took the comments that I heard at the last meeting, made the changes. It was really simple. It's not going to solve our long-term issues as far as what we're going to do for water, but the things that were little that help make it equal and fair for everybody, I think we've addressed in there, and I think we can cover all of it in the council meeting unless you have something you want to ask now.
Any questions for Mr. Douglas on this item for this meeting? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, consideration of ordinance 951 and proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Employees Classification and Compensation Plan concerning employee step and grade schedule, 1-7-2 salaries of the City Council Mayor, and 17F6 Justice Court Judge. Mr. Carden.
Okay, so if you remember, just as part of the salary survey, we've always offered the council and the mayor the same increase as the average of the scales. We have to do that by state law for the judge. And so this ordinance is just, if you guys want to take those increases, you can see on the screen what they are and how much the increase is for you guys, and then we're just required by state law to do it for the judge, and then there's also the salary schedule to approve.
Okay.
Could I say something on that one?
Sure.
Just really quickly, because I'm sure it will come up, but Stacy Haas had reached out to me this morning, and there was some discrepancies in those numbers between what we have in the packet and what currently shows as the code. We looked at that, and we had a rookie recorder last year at this time. Do you remember that?
I do remember
Some
her.
of those things didn't get sent in because she wasn't advised she was supposed to do that, so it's not her fault.
Okay.
But in looking at those, Stacy was confused why last year's numbers are different. And actually, as we got looking at it a little closer, it looks like it was not done for 2 years. So the ordinances were passed, were legal, that's fine. It just never got sent to Sterling. So when somebody pulls that up online, those numbers are going to be way off because it was 2 years that we didn't get them done. we're going to go back and make sure there wasn't anything else that slipped through that crack like that. But we're legal. We did it okay. They just would not jive, and that's why. That's what we figured, because we caught the same thing earlier on the fee schedule. Those didn't get sent in last year either, and we're kind of scratching our heads going, hey, we did this. But it just never got sent to Sterling, so that's why. So all that will be updated and corrected probably by next meeting. But just so y'all know if that's confusing to anybody, and I'll explain that in the meeting too, so Stacy understands that.
Okay. Just a point of clarification, it's okay to give the judge his increase and not increase the council and mayor salaries?
Yes.
Different ordinances.
If you
different
choose to do
areas.
that, I've drafted 2 different ordinances that covers both ways. And you can do whatever you want. The judge's one is set by the AOC. They send us a letter every year. We have to meet certain parameters. We don't have any discretion in that one, and we're within those parameters. Yours is up to you guys. And then the schedule for employees, that's the same one we do every year. So it's just up to you how you choose to proceed on it.
Okay.
But we're ready however you go. So
Okay. And not necessarily in relation to this, but just for my own clarification tonight, I'm a tiebreaker because we only have 4.
you
So
would
if there
be
is
correct,
I'd
yes.
be the tiebreaker. Okay.
Let's make sure everything ties.
Let's not have any ties. Okay.
No ties.
Yeah.
I know how
He
he
doesn't
feels
want
on
that.
stuff, so. No ties.
Okay. Next, number 4, consideration of resolution 2022-17, containing the city's not to exceed property tax rate of 0.001420, which exceeds the Weber County Auditor's certified tax rate and will require the city to go through the truth in taxation process. Mr. Carter.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this one, if it's okay, I'm going to combine this one and the next one together really quick. So the acting budget. So Steve and I did some research and talked to South Ogden, and I think we've talked about this before, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So if we go through the truth in taxation process, we actually don't adopt a final budget tonight. But what so your last adopted tentative budget or your last final budget with any amendments is what rules. And so what South Ogden has been doing is they adopt another tentative budget that they call their acting budget. And so that's what's in the packet. And so when you see that it says acting, that's what that is. So with the property tax increase in the packet is this sheet that's on the screens of all the changes that I've made to the budget since our original tentative budget. And included in there is the property tax rate. So you can see our property tax, I adjusted it up to be, and this is one of the changes, basically the same as I do with the certified tax rate, but based upon this property tax rate of 0.001420, I adjusted our property tax rate up to be this $1,542,416, or $750,570 more than we would have received at the certified tax rate. So that's one of our changes. You can see we can talk about that more during the meeting, but if we adopted the regular certified tax rate, it would have been 0.000729, and it would have generated about $791,000. And so that's the increase there. And I've updated this spreadsheet. This was in the packet. We can talk about it, but this is what it would look like if we held the rate and a couple of increases. And this is where Steve and I felt comfortable with doing those things that we talked about. So to go over these other changes, so you're familiar with what's in the budget that goes along with that, we have some citywide expenditures. This is kind of the money that we put towards, remember we brought you a list of things that we'd like to do with public safety, and that total was $875,000. After we increased some fuel costs and did a couple other things with the budget, that's how much money we had left over, was about $700,000 to put towards those increases in public safety that we'd like to do. Other changes that happened in the budget, as you can see in Scott's budget, he wanted to look at pulling an officer back from the drug task force, and so we increased his assessment there. And then we made about $48,000 worth of fuel increases just because of the cost of fuel right now. And I don't even know if that will be enough for next year, but just because of the fuel prices, that's what we did. And then I had one little change here for baseball and softball. Sean had some projects that aren't quite going to get done with Class C road money and local options, so we rolled those over. So just to go through those really quick so you can see them in the budget, so you know as we start talking about stuff. So you can see here's that reclassification. We just rolled over $3,000. We moved it from this account to this account. Here's Sean's rollovers in the Class C road funds. Here's the salaries and increases that we just talked about in that ordinance for you guys. Here's that money. So ultimately, if you guys approve going through the truth and taxation process and we get all the way through and that's the tax rate that you still approve, then this money would then be available for those public safety and other needs of the city, such as, Counselor Stevens has brought up like R.C. Willie's and other businesses in the city that are potentially going out of business that generate a huge portion of sales tax for the city. And so this would provide money to replace those and to hopefully expand the public safety of the city. You can see here Scott's budget for police. We increased this by about $2,500 for that M Bridge, the notification, the code red replacement, then some fuel costs, and then pulling that officer back. You can see in Chief Shawley's budget, here's just a small increase in fuel. In the community development, just a small increase in fuel.
Well, like 100%.
Right. It's not 100%. If you go back to my other sheet, it was just a few $1,000s. But that's where the change occurred. And like this one, I think it's only $750, so it's not a big increase. But
over what they had.
Over what they had in the tentative budget. Just so you guys know everything that changed. And then we increased the streets fuel costs. These are those rollovers, so it's a little more for Class C and local option road projects that Sean will finish up because, cement's so hard to get right now, and a few of those things, stuff's taking longer. We increased the fuel budget in the parks. And then community services, they don't use much gas at all, as you can see, but we did bump it up just a little bit. So hopefully they have enough for the year. The only other changes, if we go to there weren't any changes in the RDA funds. We'll just skip over those. In the the capital projects fund, we increased the use of fund balance by about $100,000. And then we put some money in there. In talking to a lot of the employees at the Civic Center, a lot of their desks and furniture are older than that employee. Like they've been here for 20 plus years and the employee hasn't been here that long. And so in talking to a lot of the employees, that's something that they're like, man, it'd be really nice to have a new desk. And so we put some money in there and we just have several offices. So that's one change. Just to update everybody and remind you on the water fund, we do have a proposed increase of 40%. If you remember, the last increase was in 2017, and we're calculating that increase based upon what Weber Basin's of the cost of the water has went up during that time period. It's went up 40%. So we're just want to pass that cost increase through to the residents so that fund remains in good financial shape, and so that it can, if you remember, it's supposed to be a separate total entity from the general fund, so it has to provide for its own resources. We increased the fuel in the water fund, and then some of those capital projects, we needed to roll those over to in the water fund, so that's a change. Just as a reminder, in the sewer fund, we've got that 11.33% increase. Same thing. We hadn't had a rate increase since 2019. Central Weber, which is I believe our largest expenditure outside of capital expenditures, increased their amount by 11.33%. So we're just proposing to pass that on to the residents. There's no increase in the stormwater fund. And then in the garbage fund, we've got a 9% increase. The last increase was in 2020. Our haulers proposing an 8% increase, and the transfer station's a 9% increase. So we're just proposing a 9% increase in those funds. And other than that, the budget stayed the same.
You said 8% for the hauler, so that's Robinson.
And 9% for the transfer station.
So that really is an increase of 17%, but we're only charging 9%?
Well, we pay for both, like separate, and it depends on, I think recycling separate from garbage. One is a garbage that we pay the hauler for both, and then recycling we pay Robinson for everything. So we just pay. So anyways.
So Robinson's increase includes the
transfers.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we feel comfortable with the 9% that will be okay. Because the garbage fund, if you remember, it's not like the water fund that we're trying to build like pipes and infrastructure and stuff like that. All we really need to do in the garbage fund is pay Robinson, pay the transfer station, and buy new cans, and then pay for like the public works expenses associated with delivering cans and ordering cans and stuff like that. So we don't need to make a ton of money in that fund. We want it to like break even and make just a little bit because it is an enterprise fund, but we don't need to make a lot of money to pay for other stuff. So those are the changes. We just kind of wanted to review that really quick with you so that you knew everything and kind of remembered where the increases were coming from and where we were proposing stuff. So that should cover number 4 and number 5, unless anybody has any questions.
And we can definitely discuss this more. I mean, we're just procedural stuff right now, right?
Right.
Anything for this meeting on 4 and 5? Okay. Number 6, consideration of resolution 2022-19 to amend the fiscal year 2021-22 budget.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this is just due to we might get our final tranche of ARPA money and a few things. So I'm proposing that we increase a transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund. That's the one transfer. Then we have a couple cleanup transfers in the redevelopment agency. So we cover them here, but we'll also cover them in the RDA meeting. We didn't get this rolled over in 2021 for those improvements over on like the 550 West and Riverdale Road. And so it's just moving those budgets that we had in 2021 that didn't get moved over into the final budget just due to timing and stuff. So we're just proposing to move that money over. So it's $350,000 in Riverdale Road and $100,000 in 550 West. And so those are the only budget amendments we have. And if you remember, that's the current year budget that we're talking about now. The stuff I just went over is for next year's budget. So it won't start till July 1st and it'll run through the following June 30th for fiscal year 2020, 2022, 2023, or just fiscal year 2023, depending on how you want to look at it. So that's the amendments, unless anybody has any questions for this meeting.
Number 7, consideration of resolution 2022-20 approving the non-reciprocal interfund transfer of resources by the city's general fund as provided in the city's water fund. This is about $80,000, Mr. Carbon.
Okay, so as the mayor talked about earlier, this is just something we have to do for accounting where they're separate funds. We have to treat it separate. So the water, the parks, and like we use at this building, we have to account for that. So that's what this is doing. We're just saying that, hey, we use $80,000 or about that. You can see my amount's lower than that this year because we cut back. But then with like the drought rates and some of those things, I still feel like $80,000 should be sufficient for that accounting requirement. So it's just an accounting thing that we do each year.
Okay. Number 8, consideration of resolution 2022-21 to approve the 2022-23 consolidated fee schedule. Mr. Brooks.
This is the same one we do every year when we just update all our consolidated fees. It does include all the water rates and those changes this year, so it's a little bit bigger than we normally do, but we always try to do, we can do this a couple of times during the year, but we always try to do one right now for changes that we're imposing right now. So it's just updating all that. There's a number of things in there. There's a couple things on food trucks and stuff that were mandates from the state, stuff like that. We're just trying to stay legal and where we should be.
I saw an increase for the police hourly rate for special events. Would that, like what Canes did, would that be the rate that we charge like a Canes?
Yeah,
if
those
they hire
kind of
some more
things
guys?
we're kind of lower than everybody else around. We're just trying to bring our rates up, and these are businesses generally pay those things, but we just want to stay at the same pace as everybody else around here. So we've always been lower. That's one of the things that keeps getting us in trouble. So we're just getting up where we should be.
Okay. Number 9, review fraud risk discussion for submission to the state auditor's office. Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you remember, we do this every year too. The state auditor's office put together this fraud risk assessment, and basically they've went through and other frauds that have happened in the state. They put together this checklist, and they feel like if you do all this stuff, you shouldn't have any fraud, or it should be greatly reduced. So we went through it. If you remember, we've implemented a couple things since last year, like the conflict of interest policy that all the employees and officers have to sign, and a few things. So we just have to review it with you guys each year and say, hey, like this is where we're at. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. I feel pretty comfortable with where we're at. Some of the items on the list, like they're good things. It just depends if like it fits for our entity and if we have the time, like is it worth the 5 points to do the other thing, another thing. And currently I feel pretty good with where we're at. And there's a few things we might slowly work on, but for the time being, I feel pretty good about where we're at for the city. So.
Okay. All right, number 10, consideration of resolution 2022-22, increasing the city's capitalization threshold, defining for financial reporting what is considered a capital asset from 2,000 to 7,500.
Okay, so this is all an accounting thing too. So the city has to define what we consider a capital asset. So that's something that lasts like more than 1 year and that we want to account for and depreciate. So we originally set this $2,000 back in 2004 when an accounting standard changed. And since 2004, you know what's happened to prices. And so I have to account for way more things that cost $2,000 now than I did like back in 2004. So I'm just proposing that we increase that to $7,500 so that I don't have to include as many things on my depreciation schedule. And so that year-end accounting is like a little simpler and a little cleaner. And so that's all this is it's just an accounting standard increase basically. And then we'll give that to our auditors and it'll impact our depreciation schedule going forward. So.
Okay. All right. Number 11, discussion regarding July 5th, 2022 City Council meeting. Mr. Brooks.
I just put that on there because Mike always likes to have meetings, and I didn't know if you guys would want one on July 5th, so I thought we'd bring it up for discussion. I will say at this point, we have a number of things right now. Unless you absolutely didn't want that, we probably should leave that on there, but I know you've asked about it in years past, so I put it on as a discussion item. We can talk about it then, but I think as staff, you saw how big this one is, and we postponed a lot of stuff because of this. So it's awfully busy right now. But, it's up to you guys. But we do have some somewhat pressing issues. So
Okay. We'll discuss that in the main meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments? I don't have any for this meeting. City Council, any comments? And city staff, any comments? Okay. We'll move on to the RDA agenda. Okay. We'd like to welcome everybody to our Riverdale City RDA Board Work Session meeting, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Please let the record show that all members of the RDA Board are present with the exception of Board Member Hanson, who is excused. We also have members of the city staff as well as members of the public here with us. Let's see. Presentations, we'll go down to C, presentations, reports. RDA tax increment payment report. Mr. Eggett, anything for this meeting? Do it during the main meeting. Great. D, consent items. We don't have any minutes. We're all caught up. Ms. Maragoni, on minutes?
No, they'll be on the next one.
There will be no consent items on this one. Okay. Sorry to put you on the spot. E, action items. Number 1, public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding adoption of the final RDA budget for fiscal year 2022-23 and amending the final Riverdale RDA budget for fiscal year 2021-22. Maybe Mr. Carden?
So those are just those two little changes to the Riverdale Road RDA and the 550 West RDA that I just talked about a minute ago. Just rolling those projects over. So.
Okay. And then that was the public hearing, and then action item number 2 and 3 are the actual adoption of those items.
And the RDA budget didn't change any, so it's the same as the tentative budget, and we're not proposing any tax increases or any of those kind of things in the RDA. We're actually proposing that you adopt the final budget for the RDAs because they won't change any. So, but they're unchanged from the tentative budget.
Okay. Any comments for this meeting? I did have one comment. It might have been better in the last meeting, but it fits either one of them. It's about our public hearings and how they work. So I've heard some feedback that people don't like the way we do our public hearings. We open the public hearing, we expect the public to get up and talk, and then we close the public hearing, they sit down, and then we start to discuss what's going to happen or kind of go through the process. And so I heard some feedback that people don't really like that. And then last night at the sewer board, we had a public hearing on our budget, kind of the same thing. Everybody's doing their budgets. And theirs was a little bit different. they open their public hearing, and then the city or the entity kind of goes through their stuff, and then they have a time for public comment. And that seems a lot more dangerous. but at the same time, having heard the feedback from residents just recently, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if there's a way that it has to be done or is supposed to be done, but I thought that was a little bit different. Then after the comment, they close the public hearing. But
I think we've done it that way traditionally, mainly just to keep decorum and order in the meetings. If you open those things up and you start having back and forth discussions here, you'll get stuck on one topic for an hour and a half, and that's the risk you take. And then you're trying to rush other things. So you can always do what you want. I mean, there's nothing that says you're mandated to do it that way. That's just how we've done it, and that's the reason why we've done it that way. And I was going to make the same comment too. In addition to that, whether it's in our regular meeting or the RDA meeting, just stay focused on whatever you're talking about. We don't want to be drifting for the same reasons, because if we start wandering from that, that's not how it's listed on the agenda. We need to stay with that item and just discuss that one specifically. Then when that one's done, move on. Try not to intermingle those, and it just gets too confusing that way. So we want to keep it as clean as we possibly can on that.
I think the way we do it requires the residents to be a little more informed. They have to have read stuff beforehand to come in. They can't just come in blind and kind of say what's going to happen, and then because they kind of miss their chance at that
Right.
point to comment. But
And while we're talking about that, just since we got a few people here, there's actually two places where public could comment, just to give them information. There's a public comment towards the start of the agenda, and that's your opportunity to talk about anything that you want to talk about. The things that we talk about have to be on that agenda, but the public you could bring up anything you want in that public comment thing. They won't respond to most of that, but if you just want to get up and tell us how ugly we are, or whatever you want to do, that's free game. And then in the public hearings, again, that's when we're talking about a specific thing, and just stay focused on that particular thing. So, and then they work a lot smoother if we do that. So.
okay.
And just to your point, I've had 3 different people contact me about our agenda based on Facebook posts and stuff. Everything that I've explained to them, they're like, "Oh, I was going to come but now I get it." I mean, so the information side of it, I wholeheartedly believe in what you're saying, because most of the things that are going to be said to us is ill-informed or misinformed. Because we've talked about these issues a lot. And so we hear a little bit about anything that somebody drums up about something, and, so it is nice to be able to clarify the position with things. So, like Chief Brinkman's people getting shot at, people having a problem with, our public safety budget, but yet, they want a police officer or a fireman to show up when it's time to show up, but I guess they don't want to see them if they don't need them, kind of thing. So,
Okay, very good. Thank you. One other quick thing about our main meeting is Woody going to be here? Does anybody know?
Yeah.
'Cause we have the 30-year recognition for him, right? That would be tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
just do it next meeting.
He probably won't
30 years.
come that meeting either. We'd have to drag him in here. So
He said he's willing to come to the 5th if we want him here. but
There we
I'm
go.
not real excited.
There you go.
Okay.
Not really.
Well, I'm just trying to
If we haven't.
keep all my ducks in a row for tonight and make sure that we're doing everything we need to do. So, okay, well, we have 1 minute until we're going to start our real meeting. So,
Your clock's off. Mine
Throw the
says
gavel.
6.
6. All right. All right. We're going to call the Riverdale City Council main meeting to order for Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Please let the record show that all city council members are present, with the exception of Councilor Hanson, who has been excused. We also have members of the city staff as well as members of the public here with us tonight. Councilor Merrill is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Councilor Hilton will lead us in an invocation.
We could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee in humble prayer as we meet together in representation of the citizens of this great city. We thank thee for the blessings thou hast granted us. And we pray for thy Spirit to be with us tonight as we consider the issues before the citizens of the city. We pray that thou will be with and protect those who serve the city, especially those who put their lives in danger in doing so. We pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, both of you. Okay. We'll now move on to item D, public comment. This is an opportunity for you to address the city council regarding any concerns, comments, or ideas that you might have. No action will be taken during the public comment section. As you approach the microphone, please state your name and the city that you reside in, and also try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell and council persons.
Perfect name.
I'm delighted to be with you. I'm Lorraine Brown. I'm a candidate for the Utah House of Representatives and wanted to take a few minutes to just introduce myself to you. I recognize that many of you may have voted already, but according to our records, 80% have not in our county. So I wanted to let you know that I am a wife and mother, a small business owner, an attorney. I'm currently president of Family Promise of Ogden and also of the Weber County Republican Women's Group. I have 30 years of experience in dealing with families, my own and many others, that I would like to bring to bear in the Utah legislature. So the primary theme of my campaign has been families first, and I would like to see a change of direction in our legislature. I feel like we've been focused on growth and development to the exclusion of some of the important issues on the ground that impact our families. So with that, I will leave a few items here for anyone who wants to pick them up, some literature if you're interested, but I just wanted to let you know that I am also very concerned about our local cities and towns and have committed to defend the autonomy of our cities and towns, to keep it local if at all possible. Let's resolve our solutions where they belong, resolve our problems where they belong. So anyway, thank you so much for all you do for Riverdale and for Weber County. I'm very excited and hope to have the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you.
I'll just leave these right here.
My name is Stacy Haas, and I'm a resident of Riverdale. I just would like to verify that the emails addresses that are on the website actually go to you people. Because I sent an email to each one of you and asked some questions, and the mayor responded within a few days, and I got a second response, but I haven't got. Oh, I'll have to check because I got a response from Annie, but I haven't seen anything else. So I just want to make sure that you guys are getting your emails to be able to respond to your constituents. Thanks.
Thank you.
Could I say something? I responded. Maybe I need to check your email to make sure I have a correct email to respond to. And it was within a couple days of receiving it.
I'll check again.
Okay. We'll now move on to presentations and reports. For the mayor's report, I don't have anything for this meeting tonight. We'll move on to number 2, city administration report. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. The department heads' reports are in your packet. I don't know if you have any questions on those. We have all the department heads here tonight. If you did, we could address those with those concerns or questions you might have on that. If not, we'll move on. Again, going through our packet, and I'll just refer to some pages. I hope they correspond to the same ones in your packet. But page 10 gives us a reflection of the sales tax on a month-to-month basis there, and you can see if you compare It's the most recent is May of last year compared to this year. We're about 16,000 up. Not a huge difference, but last year was a pretty good year. So that's kind of a big thing. The biggest concern that I have about that, and this kind of falls into some of the stuff that Cody's going to address tonight, and we talked about the needs and stuff of the city as far as public safety, and we've got them all over the place. We haven't increased things for a very long time, and we've gotten to the point where we just don't have any more rabbits to pull out of the hat. And that's why we keep coming to you saying we need more, we need more, we need more. It's not like we want to, but when your whole or the bulk of your budget is based on sales tax, you run a huge risk if the economy goes down. And some of the articles I've been reading, it looks like we're starting to turn that way. So I'm really nervous about this year. But in addition to that, we know for a fact that we're losing one of our big players in Riverdale City. And just the difference in losing that sales tax coming in will probably take up most, if not all, of our proposed increases in what we're going to talk about tonight. So we've got some big issues here, and that's not even addressing the public safety issues. So I looked at that a little bit closer today, and I mean, you're talking almost a $500,000 hit just from that one company alone. So it's going to be a little bit scary, and if the sales tax goes down, those numbers won't be reflective of what we've had in the past. We've been very fortunate, we've been blessed, but we can't rely on that. That's where we've got to start diversifying a little bit. So just be mindful of that as we go through this. On page 11, the only reason I marked that one up is this is our monthly utility report. And sometimes I know you guys get asked a lot about some of these things, one of which came up last meeting, but it breaks down, our water fund, sewer fund, storm fund, garbage fund, and breaks those down into smaller items. If you get a chance to look at that, the one in particular on water, it gives us some average uses and stuff like that, average use. And again, these are averages citywide. For residential, 7,000 gallons, and commercial, the average that this shows is 44,000. We talked a little bit about that last month, just in one commercial situation, and it wasn't quite that high. So some of them use quite a bit of water. That's 44,000 gallons. So you have that information, just whether or not you see that each month. It is in your packet. On pages 12 and 13, actually, this is kind of a good one. Cody's got those right there. And the reason I point this out, this is showing, it's the user fees, which is reflective of how much water they're using. So if you'll see where we were at this time last year, we are on quite an upward trend. Even though we were asking people and cautioning them to cut back on water, it didn't happen initially. And you can see that's starting to shoot up. And if you look at this year, we've plateaued. So people are listening to the message. They're not using water. This is both commercial and residential. So I think that's a really good sign. That is a little bit deceptive there. They're not going down like that solid blue shows. That last dot, that's actually where that ends. But if you compare that to last year, we were shooting up. And so people are listening. They're being conservative. I think it's important that we keep passing that message on, because I don't think that they always realize this. I mean, we'd love to give them all the water we can, but we don't have all the water we want to give them, nor does Weber Basin charge us the same prices anymore. So people are listening to us. I think it's good. They're hearing us, and they're trying to do their part. So hats off to them. I think that's reflective of both our commercial departments and our residents are doing a good job with that. Page 26, I love to bring this one up every month just because I say this every month, but it's the same thing. We live and die around Riverdale Road, both commercially and everything. This is our crime activity. And if you see that everywhere, almost everything is centered on Riverdale Road. We got maybe two things outside of that our police department was involved in. Awfully heavy, long Riverdale Road, but then that's about all we really do. That is our lifeline. It's also our most expensive issue when we have to use our resources there. Page 27. The only reason I bring this one up because I think it's a little important, and I talked to Rich Taylor about this one today. Some of you may be aware, it was in the paper last week, that Roy is voting tonight on whether or not to keep their activity center open out there, their pool and different things. It's important to us because we do a little joint deal with them where we can get passes and different things. So if that closes, that will affect us. We don't know what's going to happen. They've never approached us about any help or anything like that. But as I understand it, it's really gotten run down over the last few years. So I think Rich guessed about $1 million just to get that up somewhat in decent enough shape that they can continue that. And I don't know that they have that in their budget, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that go away, which does affect a lot of our residents, just so you're aware of that. We should know more about that tomorrow. Employee recognition, I really wish Woody would have been here, but since he's not, we'll save it for next month. But Rich Taylor is here, so we will recognize him. Eight long and grueling years. I'm Rich. Rich is doing a great job for us. We've pawned some new stuff on him this year, so he's really getting the same fire hose treatment that Karina did here back in January. A lot of surprises there. And then Officer Phillips has been 6 with us. One of them I would mention that's on the second page is our city recorder. She's been with us a year now. And just, I don't want to embarrass her or anything like that, but I will. As I mentioned that in our work session, that and this is more for Stacy Haas. Stacy brought this to my attention this morning. Some of the numbers weren't jiving, and so when we got looking at those things, what we've discovered, especially on that one with the judge's salary and your salaries and stuff, they don't match up with what our code says and where we're at. So as we looked at that, we did pass the ordinances, and that's the important thing. That's what's binding. The problem is we have to send those to the publisher, who is Sterling Codifiers, and if that doesn't get done, it never gets updated. Well, as we looked at that, it's actually 2 years behind on a couple of those. So for whatever reason, and I'm not blaming Michelle, I didn't know if she was on board at this time last year when we did this, but they didn't get sent in. And so that's why those numbers would be different. The ordinances are correct. We've done it right, but we've got to get better at that. I'm not sure what happened. We were in a switch over right then, and it just fell through the crack. They didn't get done. So that's why those wouldn't match up. But and here was where I was going with Michelle on this. So you all got your packet on Thursday, if you noticed that last week. This is probably the busiest, heaviest one we do all year. And when I came in on Wednesday, she had that thing pretty much outlined and in order with old ordinances, so I just had to update things. And that's why you got that so fast. I mean, that's never happened. So we went from someone who didn't know anything last year to doing our packets for us, which is great. And so when I say that, she's been great. For 1 year's experience, that was amazing to me. Between her and Cody, this was the easiest one I've ever done, and this is always the nastiest one we do all year. So kudos to both of them. So thank you. Staffing authorization, again, we are still below by quite a bit, and I think I've mentioned this before. I think it's actually higher than what we reflect on this, but we still have positions open pretty much citywide that we have never filled for some time. And that's all I had as far as city administrator's report. Mike, you got anything on the community development? He does include that status report in there. I don't know if there's anything really new. Same ones that have been coming for a while. They're making progress. As I mentioned, a couple of you before all of you were here earlier, we will have another one on the West Bench probably at our next meeting, whenever that is. So that one has taken a big leap, and that's been a ton of work, but it's come out in Riverdale's favor. This has been a good thing. It's been a long battle, but it's been worth it, and I think you guys will be happy with what you see on that. So, but it's not there, but we're pretty much finalized on that one, or we will be here shortly. So, any questions for me on any of that?
Question for Mike. When is Chick-Fil-A going to close?
Maybe within the next month. They're still trying to finalize.
They haven't picked a date.
No.
I only mentioned it because it was on social media.
Yeah, it's forthcoming. It's pretty soon.
Okay.
A lot of people seem to think July 9th, I think.
I don't know.
It would be nice if we knew before rumor knew.
I know. True.
It's soon.
We'll try and find that out, and we'll pass it on to you through an email so you know if you get hit up about it. Because I know that's a hot topic. Everybody has to have their Chick-fil-A, so.
12th Street's a long drive.
Anything else? I had a couple of questions, actually, real quick. Cheddar's, what's going on with that? It doesn't look like much is going on over at Cheddar's.
I'll just come up. You should have given a report. Just deal with it.
Cheddar's has same. It's like Chick-fil-A. It's an access management. Only this time it's Lowe's. Lowe's has to grant a right of way for Cheddar's use because it's a shared drive. And so Lowe's is working with the property owner, CCA, to provide that access. So as soon as that access is provided, that will come out of the ground.
Okay.
But it's coming.
Couple more questions.
Okay.
The June tax from last year, the sales tax was huge. Did we get a big payment of some sort during that? Or, I mean, it's not like the Christmas sales tax comes in
No,
that
but
time? Or
It's the reconciliation between,
was okay.
yeah, because if you keep in mind, we get our sales tax 2 months in arrears. So we don't really know what it is. So I'm reporting it in real time, but it's actually 2 months behind.
Okay.
And so I reconcile it to like the financial statements in June. So if we collected more money, then it looks like it goes up.
Okay.
There you go. Good answer.
And then the last thing is just about the Roy Complex, and this is it's a little bit too little too late, but I did have a meeting with Mayor Dandoy, and he was really hoping our residents would reach out. He really doesn't want to see it close. He thinks it's a huge regional asset. One thing is the Roy residents feel like, hey, why should we fund this thing? Well, actually, a lot of ramp funds have gone into the Roy Complex, and so we are funding the Roy Complex. And I just didn't feel comfortable getting on social media and say, hey, everybody go to the Roy meeting tonight when we have our big budget meeting tonight. I was kind of torn because he said, hey, if your residents care about this, have them come out and voice their opinions, even though they don't live in Roy, because it is a regional recreation type center. And he feels like it would be a huge loss to just let it go. They'll never get it back. They'll never get anything like it back. And so anyway, that's just a little bit of a pass on from him. After tonight, there may not be much we can do about it, but we may have missed our chance. But anyway, it's been a huge benefit to our residents to be able to get those discounted passes. And anyway, that was just kind of an interesting insight on the Roy Complex. So thanks, Mr. Rickett. All right. There's nothing else. We'll move on to the consent items. Number one, consideration to approve the meeting minutes from the June 7th, 2022 council work session and also the June 7th, 2022 council meeting. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes? Seeing none, a motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to the action items. Number one, public hearing. We're going to do these one at a time. The first public hearing will be to receive and consider public comments regarding the following. Letter A, amending the Riverdale City budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. We need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now open to consider comments for the Riverdale City budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. Seeing no comments, we would need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that public hearing is now closed.
You were missed a half a second, so I fired.
We'll move on to a public hearing for item B, proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Code Human Resources Manual referred to in 1-7-1 and 1-7-2 salaries of the City Council and Mayor and 1-7F-6 salary of the Justice Court Judge. We need a motion to open that public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing is now open.
When I was on the city council, I voted against every single budget for one specific reason, and that was the salary of the city council and the mayor. I didn't think that the compensation that was being provided was what should have been provided. It was really way over what should be provided. And I think that continuing to increase it just is silly. You guys aren't here to make a ton of money. You're here to serve the public. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be remunerated at all, but I don't know, $12,000, $12,000 to $15,000 per year of compensation seems overly generous. I know that when we looked at the budget, one of the things that they always did was they looked at cities around and compared what was being paid to our council to what was being paid to the other councils. Well, guess what? The councils are the ones that are making the decision on how much to pay themselves. And it just keeps going up. And I just think it's silly to, in a time of fiscal problems, to continue to increase the council's salaries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. I would like to ask, I'm sure you won't, but if when you get ready to vote on the ordinance, justify your vote for how much you're going to get.
I'm a state of Utah employee, and all the state of Utah employees, all they're getting is a 3.5% COLA increase. I haven't done the math. I don't know what percentage you guys are getting, but if it's more than that, how are the residents going to fund all of the increases? Some of them are on fixed incomes, and you can't get blood from a turnip. Thanks. Wayne Higgs, sorry. Do you need me to spell it?
Okay, seeing no further comments, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you for your comments. We'll now do item C, a public hearing for non-reciprocal interfund activity transfer of resources utilized by the city's general fund as provided by the city's water fund. We would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now open.
In looking at the spreadsheet that you used to calculate it really didn't explain where that water was used. And one of the things that I found really, really disappointing this year was the fact that you opted to not open the splash pad. I understand it's a water issue, but I would think that cutting back slightly on the watering of the parks could have quite easily paid for provided the water that would have been used by the splash pad. And like I says, I couldn't figure out from all those different entries which one might have been the splash pad or the parks. But I understand that the city has to pay for the water, and I'm glad that is happening. Because when I was on the council, they didn't account for that, and I always asked why. But so now you are. That's great, and it's nice that you're putting that money in. But I was really disappointed that you opted for no splash pad. Thanks.
Did you have a comment?
I do.
Okay.
So, and Sean, Douglas, if you'd back me up, but just so you understand where you're disappointed, it isn't so much the water of the splash pad, because it's actually getting the splash pad up and going, but cutting back on the parks, the watering of the parks, it's the usage on the grass. So if you cut back the watering and you have the usage on the grass, people going to and from the splash pad, it destroys the park. And it's actually to get the park back from the reduced watering schedule. So that's the reasoning, isn't as much of saving the water for the splash pad as it is saving the park from the usage of the people transitioning back and forth from the splash pad and ruining the grass with the diminished watering schedule, is my understanding.
That was a lot of it played into it, and we did have a lot of complaints last year on having splash pad running and toting it out at the same time. So there was a lot of public feedback on running that. I know South open theirs this year. And I don't know, I don't think Harrisville did either, but there was a lot of negative comment on us running it last year. And then when you look at the usage, the water at the splash pad is probably insignificant compared to the park itself, but we're also not watering parks as much. And we didn't want to ruin the park by not having water and still having 75 to 100 splash padders plus all their parents there at the same time on the grass, because it really makes us water a lot more in them areas. So that is correct.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. We would need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Good. All right, our final public hearing for tonight. Item D, adopting the Riverdale City acting budget for the fiscal year 2022-23 year. We would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now open.
Feel like a jumping jack. When I was, again, back when I was on the city council, we went through the initial, what was it, SB 34, when they changed the way that sales taxes would be distributed. And the first year that they the first budget that came up after that, one of the points that came up was the state legislature doesn't want to do anything for Riverdale because Riverdale doesn't charge enough to their citizens. So they proposed a 50% increase in the tax, in the property taxes. And as I was looking through the budget, amazingly, they cut more than 10% out of the budget because of the way that the timing worked. We lost a year of property tax revenue increase, so we went back a year and had to cut that part out of the budget. That was cut out of the budget, and while all the department heads were not thrilled about it, it seemed a whole lot easier than it should have been. And at the same time, I also found a situation where within the budget there was almost exactly the same amount that we were increasing the property taxes that was being shuffled over into capital projects. And it seemed really silly to me to impose a $400,000 property tax increase when you were putting $400,000 into the capital projects fund without really having a project specifically to be used for that fund. And I argued extensively against that, and ultimately they did decrease the increase that was asked for, and but they still, the biggest issue was that the state legislature felt we didn't charge our citizens enough for the funds because we had such a huge amount of property tax or sales taxes. And then after we did that, the state then granted the ability for cities to that were affected by that issue to impose up to a 0.2, I believe, percent property or additional sales tax. And when that happened, I came in at that time and argued against taking the whole 2.2%. That would only take what you need. and they didn't need that entire amount. But because it was available, the city council decided that's what they would impose. And after that point, it seemed like everything went real well and no further need to increase taxes, and everything went well. We continued to increase our sales taxes. With the bump on the amount that we got, we didn't have to scrimp and save every dime. And we're now to a point again where sales taxes are an issue, and so now it is again being dumped on to the property tax, and that, along with the other issues, the fact that water rates probably should have been increased last year or the year before and weren't, and now you're to a point where you have to do a 40% increase, and then the drought imposes another 50% penalty. That's a significant increase. The sewer rates are going to be going up. I would not be surprised if people, even by conserving, still see their city bills increase by 50 to 100%. The amount that they pay for utilities to the city. That is going to be really, really difficult, especially for the people for whom that is the increase. Now, me personally, I can afford it. I can afford the property tax increase. I can afford the utilities increases. I can afford the the franchise tax increases. That's not an issue for me, but I know a lot of people for whom it is a real issue. And with the price of gas, the price of food going up as fast and as much as it is, I just think that it's unconscionable that you guys are raising the rates as much as you are. I mean, I can understand raising rates. You know, maybe you raise the the water 20% this year, 20% next year, and 20% the year after that. Give people a little bit of time maybe to catch up on their income. Even Social Security will be increasing fairly significantly this year. But I just think that all of those increases all at once is just too much. Thanks.
So, my name's Becky Mitchell. I am a resident of Riverdale, and I've watched the council and the city for a lot of years, what goes on. And my comments today really aren't aimed necessarily at the council or the mayor. They're aimed mostly at the public, and I understand that there's not a lot of the public here today, but this is recorded and it goes out on the city's website. So I would like to say probably we should have raised taxes and rates in the past. And I am a fiscal conservative. I have been 100% do not raise taxes. However, we live in Biden's America now, and our money does not go where it used to go. And if the city is to supply the core services that the city is to supply to its citizens, if you like your garbage being taken away, if you like that clean water coming in, the prices have to go up, and it is unfortunate. The city council has not given themselves raises very much. I've watched that. And I dare say they will not again this year. And maybe it's something to look at to do it in incrementally, but I just hope that people understand that the people on the council and the mayor do try to do it as best for the citizens of Riverdale. and try to protect them as much as they possibly can. Thanks.
Okay. Seeing no more comments, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. Thank you for all those comments. We'll now move on to action item number 2, consideration of ordinance 952, amending the Riverdale Municipal Code Ordinance, Title 8, Chapter 6, to better clarify, define, and implement sections concerning the conveyance of water rights to the city on development in Riverdale. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. So after our last meeting, we went back and made some changes. I think we covered everything that we was asked to cover that we could cover in a short term. I mean, that's not solving our water problem. We're still going to have to figure out how to get more water and how we're going to develop new properties with new water. I mean, we're still asking them to bring it with the change. We did go back and put in the fee in lieu of. We also specified what that cost would be, so there was no questions. It's cut and dried. It has a closure date. They had to be to the council by a certain date in there. We also put in there a credit for existing uses, whether it's commercial or residential. If they redevelop, they get a credit of their previous 4 years. So if they come in and they were using 10,000 gallons a month, and they come in, they're saying we're only going to use 10,000 gallons a month, they would not be required to bring us any more water. If they were using 10,000 gallons a month, they come and say we're going to use 100,000 gallons a month, they would be required to bring the additional 90,000. The other issue that was talked about a little bit at the last meeting was also like, we'll say we come in, we want to use xeriscape, and you're charging us for 4 acre feet for landscaping. We also put a clause in there, so if they're going to use xeriscape in there based on the use for that xeriscape, we'll give them a credit towards that, which should encourage people to go that way, especially commercial. I think on the commercial, I think what you've seen lately in Riverdale, it's going more that way. I think it looks nicer because they maintain it better, it seems like. We don't get big dried out grassy areas. I think the short-term items are in there that you ask us to do. We try to turn it around. This really affects a lot of people and a lot of people's homes or livelihoods, so we try to turn it around fast for you. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Seeing none. Okay, sorry.
No, you're
Councilor
fine.
Arnold, yeah.
I appreciate everything you've done because it works. I think what you're trying to do. The one thing that I do have an issue with is on 863A3, when credit is given for secondary water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with Pineview because I get that, because we do have residents that have connection to Pineview. What I don't like is the Weber Basin secondary system, because that is owned separate from the property. And so where I live, one of the reasons we bought it was because it was a dead end road. And within just a short time, somebody put the road through, built a couple new houses. It didn't work for them for whatever reason. They sold the properties and off they went. If someone were to do this with Weber Basin water, it doesn't guarantee that the water stays with the property, right? Because it's a different ownership.
No, this is actually, Weber Basin does have, they do provide secondary water just like Pineview. So they have systems where they provide.
Right, but it's controlled by water share, ownership of water shares.
No, they have a separate system.
Who is this?
So
where
like
does the water come from?
So like if you look at Coleman Farm, or not Coleman Farms, Colby Farms, they're on Weber Basin secondary water up there.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking Weber Basin secondary water that's
not
from the
like
canal
not irrigation. So
okay.
So I think what you're thinking is Davis Weber secondary. That's like the canal water shares like that. We're in this ordinance, we're talking about that they're a secondary water provider with a system.
Okay.
So that it's not tied to shares or anything. They have to have a secondary system. And honestly, most of the area that would be affected by this is going to be like in the upper East Bench. Some of the areas even over by Shopco though, Pineview does serve over there. And so we thought it'd be unfair, and we just cleaned it up at the same time with this one. Because when I looked at it, I'm like, we're going to have somebody come in and say this to us in the future. I have secondary water. Why should I have to pay twice for it? So it just seemed appropriate to clean it up at this time. But it's only if they have a dedicated secondary system to them. It's not if they have a ditch share that somebody else owns. They have to be on a system.
Okay, thank you.
We could call pressurized secondary, couldn't we? Because then that would eliminate what he's talking about.
There is pressurized secondary off of Davis Weber Canal as well, though.
Yeah, they push it, so when they have through their sprinkling systems or whatever, I don't know if it's from a pump or...
It's mostly based on elevation because the elevation of the canal is high enough that by the time they gravity feed it down, they gain the pressure on it, so.
Yeah, the thing I was thinking is if you have a separate water share that is feeding the property and then the owner takes the water share with them, and then the owner wouldn't have the access to that particular water. So
Correct.
if that's okay.
It's just it's a secondary system in and of itself.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, good discussion. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, a motion would be in order. Councilor Arnold.
I'd move to change the municipal code title 8, chapter 6 as stated within the packet with no changes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. I do it different every time, so it's kind of my fault. We'll get better.
Sign.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. That is 3 in favor, with Councilor Stevens being the lone nay on that. The new ordinance passes. All right. Number 3, consideration of ordinance 951, proposed amendments to the Riverdale City Employees Classification Compensation Plan referred to in RCC 1-7-1 concerning employee step and grade schedule 1-7-2 salaries of the City Council and Mayor, and 1-7F-6 Justice Court Judge. Mr. Carden.
Mayor, could I say something just really quick?
Yeah.
And I meant to do this, I just didn't know where to fit it in, but where Karina's new, she probably doesn't understand. This is just kind of generalized for all the budget stuff. Again, I'm not picking on you, Karina. I just figured that you wouldn't know, and I don't know that Annie would. Stacy would, because he's gone through this, but even a lot of the public wouldn't understand. Some of the stuff we're going to fly through here, we're talking about 2 different budgets, so I'm just trying to simplify this a little bit. There's 2 different budgets. There's this current budget that we're going through now, and so we're doing amendments on that and things like that, and then there's next year's budget. So we're talking about 2 different things, and we'll try to be careful as we go through these things and clarify which one we're talking about. It's the same processes on everything we've done for years since I've been here, except this year is a little bit different because we're dealing with truth in taxation. So instead of approving our final budget for this next year, we're doing that acting budget. Exact same thing, except we don't deal with the property tax issue. We will do that later in the fall. So that part's the only thing that's different than what we've ever done before. So just don't get totally confused. There's 2 different budgets we're talking about. We have to clean up this year's budget and then deal with next year's stuff. So 2 different things there.
Thank you. Mr. Carden.
Okay, so like we talked in the work session, the city does a salary survey, which is included in this ordinance. By state law, the judge has to give the average increase of all the employees, which is 7.99% based upon our salary survey, where we go out and query a whole bunch of other municipalities based upon job description to find out what they're paying. Then we also historically have always offered that same increase to you guys in that ordinance, and you guys can take it or strike it if you want. Just for other information, I talked to Ogden City's finance director this week, and they were proposing like a 4% increase for their elected officials. So, like everybody does a different. Ogden City, they did a different increase for all their employees if you looked at the article in KSL. But that's all this is just approving that new salary schedule. And kind of Steve talked about with this acting budget, and as we talked about in the work session, if you adopt that tonight, then that's the budget that will be in place. So these steps and some of those things, they'll take effect as of July 1st, like normal, and just the things that are impacted by the property tax would then be adopted in the final budget in August.
Any questions or comments? Councilor Arnold?
So we go through this every year.
Yeah.
And it's troublesome because, first of all, the everything that the city council has to go through to be a sitting member of the city council is traumatic for, yourself, your family. the work that you have to do to stay up on things. The compensation is minimal. It's by far less than other cities. We've always compared ourselves to West Haven, but we can't do that anymore. But West Haven is probably more than 40% more than us. Just to use, Stacy, Mr. Hawes to come up and say, or all of you check in your email that you have to check because I want a response. And then to say that, people should be compensated for the work that they do. Today, like I said, I've been texting anybody who calls me, anybody who texts me, they get a full explanation of everything that I believe. Like with Mrs. Mitchell, prices go up, things go up, and I think people should be compensated. When you take away a percentage increase from someone, and not just the sitting council, I'm saying sitting council, not city council, messing that up. But you're also taking it away from future councils because you're taking away that percentage. Because as things grow as it goes, like with the mayor. I know Braden's not particularly interested in taking that raise, as he's said it before, but he deserves it as a sitting mayor. And he also, I think one thing that we could add into the ordinance is that any individual city council member can withdraw from taking a salary. If you say, you get the raise, but you don't take the raise, you can give it back to the city. We should be able to put that in the ordinance if anybody feels that way. But if there could be someone that does do this for the money, but I think it's wrong to not participate with the city employees and say, well, we're okay giving the raise to everybody else, but we're not going to take it, which makes it holier than the position or something like that. I think you give the increase, and whether you choose to take the increase could be something that we have in the ordinance. Steve, is that something that we could add in there?
Yeah, we can always.
If somebody says, I'm not taking the salary, period.
We can't force you to get paid, so that's up to you guys.
So I think it's important to just maintain it. We're along with the city. You're compensated. I've had garbage thrown on my property. I've been attacked at church. I think that deserves compensation. I do think the planning commission should get more compensation than they do, because that's not just how we justify that one. That's pretty bad. We should give them more money, but that's not on the agenda right now. But I'm whether it's a smaller increase, that's fine. I just think, but year over year, we get ourselves in trouble, like with the water fund, the sewer fund and garbage. If you don't understand that one, we're just passing the cost through, but we'll cover that one when it comes on the thing. But this type of thing. So, and I would be fine with cutting it in half or whatever to match Ogden and just go a 4%, because that 7.99 is pretty shocking. And I think Mr. Heggs, working for the state, talked about close to a 4%. What is that? 3.5. So, if 4% going with Ogden City, I don't think it's outrageous. So I would be in favor of a 4% instead of the 7.99.
Other comments?
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Stevens.
This is what we refer to as public service. You're giving a service. No one's forcing you to do it. You're putting yourself out there, and you're taking on the responsibilities. Yes, you're compensated. And this is actually what I consider quite well compensated. But, just the service part of it says where this needs to be in not taking this at all, this increase. And that is, the optics of this is just, okay. For example, we have 2 new city council members who were put on here recently. both ran for elections, looking at their financial disclosures, consider that to be, they spend a fair amount of money that was donated to them, and that's fine. But in the first few months, what do? Vote yourself a raise and raise taxes. Wow, that is terrible optics. And 3 people are being up for re-election next year. Terrible optics. Is that what we want? I mean, I'm the one that asked for this to be separated so that we could deny it. But hey, if you want to vote yourself because you think you're worth it, 4%, knock yourself out. Terrible optics. Go ahead. I'm done.
Other comments?
Can I make one more comment, Mayor?
Yes.
So the one thing, kind of like Councilor Arnold's talking about, is we are trying to make incremental changes. Now with COVID and things, do we always get that done? No. But we are trying to look at things every year and say, hey, look, because it's way easier for us, it's way easier for the residents if we look at incremental changes rather than like huge increases, right? And so this is just a way of doing that. Now, if we offer you that increase, it doesn't mean you have to take it, but at least we're looking at it so that hopefully we're like towing that line and avoiding large increases at some point. And so from an accounting standpoint, it is way easier, whatever the percentage is that we're looking at it annually and at least saying like yay or nay, but we're at least reviewing it. And that's what we're trying to do with all the costs in the city, not just this one.
I had a couple of quick comments. I mentioned somewhere to someone that I've been on the city council for 10 years, and the bulk of the time we have not taken the raise. Now, there have been times when we've taken it, and those times generally were times when things were going well in the city, and I didn't feel like it was going to be a huge imposition on the residents. And I agree with Councillor Arnold. We do have to keep up. I mean, if we skip it every year, I remember Councillor Ellis used to get so frustrated that we would continue to skip it, and because we just fell further and further behind. And there are people that do it for the money, or at least it's a little bit of a motivation to where they might say, well, I could run and donate or give my time to do this if I was compensated a little bit. And we want to stay competitive so we can encourage good candidates to run. And so there is a benefit to doing it. But I also see Councillor Stevens' point on this year. The optics are rough. To say we're going to raise all these rates on people and then take that raise, I think this would be a particularly tough year to take the raise. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever have a raise, because I think we do need to stay competitive and stay in an area where we can encourage people to run for the office. But I think this year is a tough year to be giving ourselves a raise when we're imposing big expenses on the residents. Councilor Arnold?
Just one thing, just so everybody knows, between now and 2030, it's going to get rougher. Because all the things that Mr. Haas was talking about are maturing. That's one of the things that Mr. Brooks is talking about is the employee numbers for the city. Those are 2005 numbers that he's referring to, right? So it's the same numbers, or the people that work here is the same numbers as when you were on the council. So I mean, it hasn't been a field day, for the city by any means. And just to go with the property tax, which will come up later, but as far as the issues with the city, the public safety is the number one thing that I've been saying with the property tax, because there's more going on with Riverdale Road. They're getting shot at. It's not like we're impervious to that because we're public servants. I think the term public servant goes with police, fire, anybody that works for the city. They're public servants, but it's I take this as a job, and I take it seriously too. I've had many conversations with both of you. So anyway.
Any other comments on Ordinance 951, the proposed raise for the judge and the city council and mayor? If not,
we're splitting that out, right? We're doing one vote. for the
Whatever we
judge.
can
Whatever the
do,
motion
we
says.
can do them together, or we can do them.
We write it together because two of those are in the same code section, so we just lump it all together, but they are split up, so it's easy to deal with them separately. And I've drafted two different ordinances. I didn't draft a third one that falls somewhere in between, but we can make that work. You can just do that by a motion if you choose, because I did the full amount, I did zero, I didn't do one in between, because I don't have a clue what you would go on that one, so that's just something you can just do a burr interlineation.
Counselor Arnold, and then Counselor Merrill. He was first.
No, go ahead.
Oh, good.
I was going to make a motion. So
You have a
if you have
question?
something to say, go ahead.
If you have a question,
Well,
let's
I was
get
just
it in.
going to say, at what point does I guess what had been suggested where we have the decision to take it or not take it, is that?
In the motion.
If you want that written in the ordinance, we can do that as part of your motion. It's not there now, but you can do that.
Oh, okay.
Just a tip for a new council member. If you would like that in the motion, you kind of want to make that motion yourself, because the other person that makes a motion, it might not be in their motion, and you could end up getting.
But you can always vote against it.
You could vote against it. Yeah.
And there's
yeah.
discussion after the motion, and you can
So is that
amend the
in the
motion.
motion?
And
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just a
made his
just a
motion, yeah.
tip.
Okay.
Like if you have something that you want in a motion, sometimes it's best to make that motion yourself. So, Councilor Arnold, you were next.
So I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 951. Am I on the right? Yeah. Affirming Title I, Chapter 7, Section 2, with the city council members and mayor receiving a 4% raise on this year, with the language added for any member of the city council or mayor to opt out of their salary or a portion thereof, and to raise the justice court judge's salary as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Let's see. This is a ordinance.
Could I just get clarification, because that includes the salary chart as well? So that's included in this? We're
Salary for
not
the
changing any of
employees.
that?
Wait a
Right.
minute. Are we doing this, the employees and?
There's only one action.
There's one action, but you want to include that in your motion. There's three parts to this. There's your salaries, there's the employee scale, and there's the judge.
That should be three motions.
No.
You can handle it any way you want. I mean, it doesn't
And then
matter.
setting the salaries for the Riverdale city employees as stated within the chart. So that's the three.
Right.
4%,
It's like a three-leg
Chart.
motion.
and then the judge to get what's in the packet.
Okay.
So that's an amendment to the motion. Is the second okay with that
Agree to the
amendment? Okay. Let's poll the council on this one.
Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
Counselor Merrill?
Aye.
Counselor, not here. Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
Counselor Stevens?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries on a 3-1 vote, with Councilor Stevens being the lone.
Can I say something? That's really crappy to do that. That should have, I agree that the employees should have had it, a salary increase, but to lump that in with for the greedy council members and mayor to vote themselves a raise is horrible. That is bad.
Okay.
That was terrible.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll now move on to item number 4, consideration of resolution 2022-17, containing the city's not to exceed property tax rate of 0.001420, which exceeds the Weber County Auditor's certified tax rate and will require the city to go through the truth in taxation process. Mr. Carden.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That is a mouthful. Okay, so if you have any questions, as always, please interrupt me. You know, we've talked about this a lot. We finally got some final numbers from the county, and so we can give you more of actuals, not just speculation. So you can see this was included in the packet, but I'll just show you some stuff as we go. So the certified tax rate this year, if you remember, the county values the property first, and as property values go up, rates drop because we're guaranteed an amount of money. And then if there's any growth, then we get that on top of it. But this is the first year that the proposed tax value in the city exceeds $1 billion. Before it was in the millions, the 100 millions. So you can see it went up significantly, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the rate dropped. So the rate we are charging, well, let's back up. So the maximum allowed by law is 0.007. We're charging, or the certified tax rate this year is 0.000729, which would generate $791,846. From our previous discussions, we brought you a chart with some things that we felt like would be good to help reinforce public safety. And also, as Steve's talked about, and Councillor Stevens, we're losing some businesses in the city too. And so the rate that we ultimately proposed was 0.001420. And that generates about $750,000 of additional property taxes. Now, we did use part of that money to pay for the fuel increases of about 48,000, so it leaves about $700,000 there. We can go up, but once we set it, if you guys decide to approve a tax rate over and above the certified tax rate of the 0.00729, whatever that rate is, if you remember what you approved tonight, that's the maximum we can approve for the year. Then we can look at it this summer, and then ultimately we would have a truth in taxation hearing in August and formally adopt that rate, and it could drop during that time. It just can't go up. And so that's kind of where we started. Now, where we came up with those amounts, you remember I showed you this sheet a couple weeks ago. So this is last year's numbers. Just for everyone, a refresher. I don't know if I got it in here or not. Right here. Just as a reminder, in the city, most people of their total property tax bill, only about 9% goes to the city. The rest of it goes to other entities in the county, such as the Weber County Library, the school district, Mosquito Abatement District, Central Weber. You can see all these entities right here. So this is somebody's property tax in the city. So anyways, going back here. So based upon actuals, I got these numbers from the county. So these are the average value of the average residence in Riverdale. So nobody's house may be exactly that, but that's what the averages were for 2021, 2022, 2019, and 2022. And then based upon that property tax rate, you can see it's actually slowly increased, even though it should hold steady. So right now at the certified tax rate, the average household would pay $191 to the city. With this increase, we're right here. It would increase the property tax per residence based upon my calculations by $373, or it'd be a total of $373 a year versus the $191. So to increase it by about $180 or about $15 a month. That increase, as the mayor indicated, he thought it was best if we stayed under 100%. That's a 94% increase. Any questions so far?
Quick question. So we have the option of approving that rate, but as the year progresses, we could pick a rate that's lower than that.
Correct. Okay. Correct. We just can't go up. We can go down. So you can see here some other rates just for information. So if we did, like 0.001381, so that'd be about a 90% increase. That would capture about $700,000 more and be about $14 a month. This is if we held the rate, because as we've talked a lot, the rate drops. And this is interesting. So home values, or the proposed value in the city, went up by 23%, but the county only dropped our rate by 14%. Why they did that, that's just based upon their calculations. But if we held the rate, it would generate about $130,000 of additional revenue, and that would be about $2.60 a month per resident, and it would be a 16% increase. So anyways, this is where Steve and I, and based upon the information you guys have given us at previous meetings, this is where we felt like we were directed to go. So that's what we've included in the budget. Just for information, here's the historical tax rates of the city. So you can see, like, during the recession, tax rates actually went up because the tax assessed value was decreasing. And then you can see as like the economy recovered and prices, home values were going up, the tax rate actually went down. So the tax per $100,000 of value has actually been decreasing. We've went over this before too, but based upon 2021, this is where we rank within the county. And, I try to add the fire providers, try to make it apples to apples as much as we can. So you can see this is where we are at, because like West Haven and Marriott Slaterville currently don't charge a property tax. This is where we're at sequentially, but if you add in like the fire provider, we were number 3 lowest in the county. And like our neighbor, South Ogden, they charge a lot more than we do for the same services. So do you have any questions? I don't know what else you want me to go over. Like we've talked about this.
If we were to adopt the .14, the .142, where does that put us in the county?
So I don't know what everybody's doing tonight.
Where would it on
So
2021? If we were
based upon last year, you can see the average last year would have been the average for all entities. The combined rate is 0.001572. So we'd still be the lower half. Let's look here really quick.
number 7?
So we'd be like around 6, because you can see like, and I can't remember what Weber Fire District did. If they went up, I'm sure they did, because they usually go up every year.
10%.
So we would be right around like 5 or 6 in the county. So we would still be in the lower half of the county. And if you look at entities that like Roy and South Ogden and Ogden that provide both police and fire protection, you can see we're significantly lower than all of them. So that's kind of the need, as we've talked about in other meetings. We collect a lot of sales tax. A lot of that's collected from the people who are here. But some of the property tax, I know it impacts the residents, but we also collect that from the commercial. We have a lot of commercial base that this property tax will be assessed over. And just a couple other things that we've talked about in other meetings, you can see. So since some of our last increases, sorry, this sheet's big. Let me zoom out just a tiny bit. You can see what our property tax has done versus our public safety costs. So you can see over this chart since 2007, our public safety costs have almost doubled. And, it's just is what it is. And, we showed on here Far West, other cities, so you could see we're not the only ones. Weber County's assessments went up a lot too. Public safety's just gotten more expensive. They do more, right, all the time. And they have a tougher job all the time. So anyways, those are kind of the needs. We put together kind of this wish list of potentially what it could look like. Hiring some new employees, policemen and firemen. Ultimately, we wanted to see what you guys would approve. And then we thought we could look at that and see where we were at, and then decide exactly what to do with that, or what we could afford of this list once we get the approval. So just to recap, let me get here to truth and taxation process. If you guys decide to approve a rate above the certified tax rate, even if it's $1 over, we have to go through the truth and taxation process. There's multiple entities in the county doing it, so we follow into this yellow position. So the county is required to send out a notice on or before July 22nd about truth and taxation. Then 1 week before our hearing, we would have to send out a notice, and only one taxing entity in each district can have a meeting that night. I already checked with the county, and we should be good for our second meeting in August. But the idea is they don't want multiple, like the school district and us having a meeting on the same night, and people can't go and be heard at both meetings. So then we'd hold that meeting, and then just before September 1st, we would hold the public hearing, formally adopt a tax rate, and adopt the final tax budget, or the final budget for the year. Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilor Stevens.
Tell me again, you've brought it up before. What's the accounting standards for government municipal employees that you've quoted?
So I think you're referring to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB. They're the ones that set the standards for how we account for things. It is in their suggested best practices that your property tax, because it's your most reliable revenue source, cover your public safety costs. Because even if we shut down, like those public safety costs would still be incurred. And if you go back to this chart, you can see based upon my projection for the year, like we're in the whole 4.3 million. Now we've got to look, our city's very unique, right? So where are those calls coming from? Are those calls, like Sportsman's, if we've got a theft at Sportsman's, like where should that be funded out of? It probably should come out of sales tax, right? Because that's how they're contributing more fully to the city, is through sales tax and property tax, where if there's a domestic disturbance, somebody who lives in the city, that should probably be coming from property tax. So you can see we're paying for the vast majority of our public safety out of sales tax, not out of property tax.
Okay, now, the standard or the criteria that Gadsby said, and you've quoted, is that property tax should cover first responders in a normal scenario where you have a certain amount of population, nighttime population.
Right. And it's not like you have to do it. It's not a standard. It's just a best practice.
Best practice, okay.
So, it's like their recommendation, but you don't have to do that. And obviously we have a compelling reason not to do that.
Granted, but it's as a criteria. So if I approach the state legislature and say, hey, look, we got 9,200 people at nighttime, we've got 70,000 plus at the daytime, and you are funding us on one variable, the nighttime population, that doesn't cover the difference. And we've been in this cut by 10,000 cuts slow death for now, because nothing's been raised for quite a number of years. And so when this is being approached or articulated to decision makers at the legislature, how do you explain it? Well, using the criteria that our best practice that you enunciated before is a good way to get their attention.
Right. And I agree with you 100%. I don't think the legislature understands, like if you look at Riverdale, the cost that we incur to provide the commercial base that is here in Riverdale, right? The 60,000 people that are here during the day versus the 9,000 that are here at night. And that's where, when that was reallocated in 2005 and went from 75-25 to 50-50, it's harder to provide that service, right, at that lower cost. But I don't think the legislature understands that.
It's hard to articulate that, unless you have something
for sure,
like what you talked about with the best practice from Gadsby.
And it's hard too, because as we've talked about in other meetings, every entity in the county is different. So it's been just a bit since I looked at it, so I'm not 100%. But like West Haven, they're really close on the 50-50. They have about the exact amount of commercial. So they get about 50% of their sales tax based upon point of sale, and they get about 50% of their sales tax based upon population. Like, they're a pretty balanced city. But then you have cities like, think of Kaysville. They have very, very little commercial, but they have a pretty high population. So most of Kaysville's sales tax would come from the population component, not from the commercial. Where we're like the inverse of that. Most of ours comes from the point of sale, not from the population. Other questions? Is there anything I can answer? Is there something you want me to go over? I have most of my charts from our other meetings.
Councilor Arnold?
I mean, we've been over this many, many times, so I'm kind of saying this for the public that hasn't been in these meetings and and I know some of them have been watching closely, but some of the stuff, like our police officers draw their weapons regularly. It's not an everyday occurrence, but we've had them, like one officer was shot at twice in a week, wasn't it? Or twice in 2 weeks or something like that. But they they're in harm's way. So, you know, and then one of the things that drives me crazy, because I think we've done it to ourselves, but there are times when we have one fireman in the truck because the ambulance is out. And when I say we've done that to ourselves, by having an ambulance service and having 3 people in the station, 2 going out on an ambulance, I don't think is the best practice. We got to figure that out. But it's like people that are just looking at this financially and don't see this on a person that puts on a gun or safety equipment. Stacy, this is mostly for you, so he's the attack dog on Facebook. So, but the thing is, these guys risk their lives every day. And if you see an ambulance driving and you see the truck driving, it's got one guy in it for the fire department. So that's, I mean, one of the reasons that I've been very vocal on this, any increases going to public safety, is because we need it. And those of you that know me over the years know that I'm not big on raises, increases, all that kind of stuff, but I do think things should be fair. And I think when somebody straps on a gun or runs to your aid with something, I mean, 1, they should be compensated, but 2, they need to be safe so they go home to their family. And that's where this is about. So if people, I don't know how many people are watching on YouTube, which is a huge increase from our normal participation. But if people want to look at the Riverdale Police Department, the Riverdale Fire Department, and say that it's okay that we put your life in danger because, you know, we haven't raised our property tax. With this increase, which is a large increase, Stacy, you've put it on Facebook, what a huge increase this is. We're still below 50% in the county as the cities go. And it's earmarked for public safety, and it's something that that I feel that we owe the employees of Riverdale in an effort to get them home at night. So that's why I've been in favor of this the whole time, so.
Councilor Merrill.
Well, and I just wanted to add to that as well. When you go back to the meetings where we were able to hear presentations directly from those affected, I guess in my opinion, it was impossible to not also be affected by that and to understand the demands. And so when we make these decisions, it's not just from a financial standpoint. It's when you hear the compelling evidence to where that money goes. In my opinion, it's impossible to ignore that. And so to challenge you to go back and not only watch those if you would like to, but also speak to those affected by it directly and get kind of firsthand knowledge and understanding of that demand.
Councilor Hilton.
Let me start with none of us takes any joy in raising anybody's taxes or fees. As a side note, by raising any of the taxes and fees in the city, we're raising our own and taking a bite just like everybody else if we end up doing it that way. The reality is, as you've heard tonight, that the previous councils have opted not to make any increases in any of these things, and so it has come to a head. We are at the point where something has to be done. That doesn't even count the loss of the optional sales tax, which is imminent. So the city actually has to pay for the services that it provides and the employees that it has on staff and the resources like water and garbage that it uses. We really don't have a lot of choice. We have to pay for that, and we have to fund it, and unfortunately in unpleasant ways, because we've left ourselves little other choice at this point. So 100% property tax increase sounds really scary. If you look at the actual dollar amount per citizen, it's a much more reasonable number. And I believe that the citizens of Riverdale are intelligent enough to be able to understand that we're doing what they would do if they were here and understood all the issues like we understand. None of us are doing this because we think it's fun or we want a new car. All of us are doing this because it's become necessary. And we really don't have a lot of choice. We just have to bite the bullet and do this year what previous councils have been unwilling to do.
Councilor Arnold.
One more quick point. There's not, whether you're in administration, I know Braden as a council member, as a mayor, me as a council, I don't know if the other council members have approached other people, our senators and representatives, even not of our own districts, but in other districts that I'm friends with and things like that, talking about this. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear Riverdale's plight because we have such a low property tax and we've maintained that. So they say Riverdale's rich on this thing. So when people say, to bring it to their attention, they really know where we're at. But Riverdale has a stigma about us because of our commercial district and where we do get our sales tax from point of sale, which hurts us on the population side. But it's, if you as a citizen talk to each one of our representatives, our senator, they're not, what's a good word? They're not sympathetic to our plight. And when you have, a fire, which I think they've had 2 fires in the McDonald's and Walmart this year, and you have one guy going there in a truck, so what's that?
3 this weekend, 3 fires this weekend.
So as they're going to these fires and you can't operate the truck with one person and you have to go in the fire to see what's going on. You have no command center, you have nobody running the truck. I mean, it's a big deal. And so anybody that's saying, this, I mean, it's been a problem for a long time. It should have been addressed when you were on the council, but it wasn't.
Sure, council.
So,
We didn't have the ambulance then either,
true.
which was a big mistake.
Somewhat agree.
Can I also say the ambulance is generating about 400 what's the ambulance generating now, Cody? Which is why they did it, because the ambulance could generate cash.
But it's still operating at a loss, so. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
But call your representatives and call your senators too and say you're from Riverdale and let them know you're watching their race as well, because it's, you're not gonna get a lot of support from them that go to Salt Lake on our behalf.
And just to be clear, Riverdale's enjoyed an artificially low property tax rate compared to peer cities in the county and in other counties because we've had such a gravy train with the sales tax. I think we all understand that. And so those days are ending soon and have changed significantly when the state changed the way that they split the sales tax. So we've been kind of eating ourselves alive since those days, since that happened, by essentially underfunding most of the city. And the city and the city leaders have done an outstanding job, in my opinion, of making do. So as people have left through attrition, people have absorbed everybody else's jobs. When we needed to have added patrolmen and firefighters, we didn't. And so we've got jobs that haven't been opened, positions that haven't been filled. We're running fire trucks that are embarrassing when they show up. There was a recent actual real fire at Walmart, and the truck that showed up had a guy on it who can't go in safely and do anything because it takes 2 people to operate a fire truck pump. And so that guy sits outside and waits for Roy or somebody else to show up. That's embarrassing. That's unprofessional. Why are we doing that? Because we basically have, for the last X number of years, instructed city staff to just shut up and make do. And that's gone on way too long, to the point where we actually need to do something to preserve the safety and the quality that we provide as city services, and to support the outstanding employees that Riverdale has the blessing of having employed here. We have top-notch people. We always have had top-notch people. I don't believe the citizens of Riverdale want to downgrade the quality of staff that we have here. So therefore, you got to pay for it.
Okay. Councillor Merrill.
Even shorter point, not to really try to hone in on the heartstrings here, but when you're in an emergency situation as well, and there's a matter of just a couple of seconds of an officer in Riverdale showing up versus an officer having to be called from another area, I would go as far to say money goes out the window. You want to trust that somebody can show up. And anyone who's ever been in that kind of situation, which unfortunately I was, just even a couple of months ago, and I was very grateful that an officer showed up literally within minutes to the property to help that situation and to help us feel, and to also resolve the situation the way that they should. And you can't put a dollar amount on that, in my opinion.
Okay. Everyone done commenting? Councillor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2022-17 as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a resolution, so Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
Counselor Stevens?
Aye.
Counselor Merrill?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. That was a good and robust discussion. Thank you very much for all the comments. All right, moving on to item number 5, consideration of resolution 2022-18 to adopt the city's tentative acting budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we talked in the work session, there was this sheet provided. We went over them all in the work session. These are the changes since the tentative budget, because you just decided to go through the truth and taxation process. We're asking that you approve this acting tentative budget. So this is the budget would operate under until August when we finish the truth and taxation process. And those are all the changes. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Arnold.
So is this the one, because you've got several items tonight, which is the one that has the, I think it's 115,000 for new furniture?
It's 100,000, yeah, and that's in this one.
And this one, I missed
That's okay.
the color. There was yellow or purple before.
Yeah.
But
At least you guys can see color.
But anyway, I'm good with the budget except for that. We went through that process at my work with the federal government, and we tore out all our old cubicles and put in all new cubicles, and we didn't gain a thing. We changed the colors of our metal cabinets and stuff like that. I think I would be in favor to pass this with that stricken.
Any other comments?
You know, yes. There is no reason to strike that at this point, because we can, I think it needs to be there. It can be modified. It can be, directions can be given, but to strike it, no, absolutely not. We can put discretionary usages there. No, it needs to stay.
Any other comments? Councillor Arnold?
Just clarification, once the budget is passed, you don't strike that. It's not brought back to the council for expenditure if it's within a certain dollar amount. That's what the budget's about, is to put the money in there or not in there so it can be used. So you strike it, it can't be spent on, it's not like it's coming back to the council to be approved.
And let me just tell you a little bit more about the desk. The only thing we're looking at here is, I don't know if you've been in the police station. They just did a remodel. A lot of my employees, they've been to the police station now. Some of their desks like raise up and things like that. We have several employees that have back problems and things like that. So having a desk that allows them to stand up while they're here provides a lot of like comfort, and I get it that it's a lot of money and things like that, but we have a pretty big building. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to buy like the top of the line thing. We're just trying to.
Veridesk can be purchased that sit on the old desk that raise up and.
Right, but the problem is we have some of those, and they take a lot of work to raise those up and down, and so the people who have back problems can't lift them. Where if you go to the police station, they have a little switch they just flip, and their desks go up. And so a lot of that's the reason that we put that in here is a lot of our employees would like that same type of thing that we have at another adjacent building, and be able to have a desk that fits their physical requirements better. But if you want to strike it, that's fine. And you're both kind of right. Like we're not adopting a final budget. That's just a tentative. So you can strike anything in the meantime. But yeah, we'd obviously want to know too, so that like we don't order something and then you're like, no, never mind. But that's why it's in here, is to provide our employees with better working conditions. Because like I said, a lot of the desks are 25 plus years old, and they're expensive to buy a new solid wood desk. So,
Any other comments? Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2022-19 to amend the fiscal year budget 2021-22 budget with the item stricken that I mentioned earlier.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Yeah. Real quick, Counselor Stevens, did you second that?
Second, yeah.
Okay. Couldn't tell who it was.
You've been doing this for a year now.
I know, right?
Yeah, I was first twice. What are you doing?
That kind of sounds. Counselor Stevens,
Nay.
Counselor Hanson, Counselor Arnold,
Aye.
Counselor Merrill,
Aye.
Counselor Hilton.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries with a 3-1 vote. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 7, consideration of resolution 2022-20, approving the non-reciprocal interfund transfer of resources used by the city's general fund as provided by the city's water fund. The estimated value is these culinary water services, $80,000. Mr. Cardin.
I think we skipped number 6.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay.
Made the
I think the
motion
motion
on
was
6 instead of-
2022-19 though. I think I think it was spoken as 2022-19.
Blame it on Alan.
It's
And
true.
that's-
No,
and that's why I second, because I'm not going to approve anything.
What? I missed that.
Mr. Attorney, what do we do in this case?
Do it again.
okay.
So
A motion.
we're going to go
Number
2022-18, right?
Yep.
Right.
I don't approve.
So you don't give a second. Or the second is not approved with the
So
modification.
motion,
Just declaring that was an invalid vote. Now we're starting over.
So we're starting over.
right, so, can I go?
Yeah, Councilor Arnold,
Motion
thank
to
you.
approve resolution 2022-18 to adopt the city's tentative acting budget for fiscal year 22-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay,
Polling again.
poll the council, please.
Counselor Stevens,
Nay.
Counselor Arnold,
Aye.
Counselor Merrill,
Aye.
Counselor Hilton.
Aye.
And just for the record, that passed with the $115,000 in it, correct?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Did you state that in the motion?
Yes.
And the first motion, not the second motion. But I meant it in the,
It
Third
got
time's
stated
the
in the
charm.
second motion.
No, just go with it as it's stated.
Do it again.
No, there's no reason to do it again.
yes, there's a reason to do it again.
Can we do it
Can't-
again?
You can't undo your own motion.
I don't know that we can right now.
I
Want
think
it-
that's
Yeah,
want to turn
I
it-
mean, really, you shouldn't.
That's right.
We
should.
can bring this up again in August.
Yeah,
Because this is your
This is a
temp.
tentative budget. It
Right.
can be modified.
Tentative
So
budget.
my suggestion is leave it alone for now and then bring it up again in the fall
Yeah.
when we actually do the final.
Okay.
Or it's just tentative, because really, once we passed it,
It's passed.
it's there, so,
The resolution is.
right.
Okay, the resolution passed 3-1. And it did include the 115,000. For now. Sorry.
Gavel.
You pulled a trick on yourself.
Don't get out of order.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Makes Bart happy.
So let's move on to number 6 now.
And I didn't catch it, otherwise I would have voted for it. But I would have voted everybody off.
I know he still voted against it.
Well, if I would have voted with it, then
they
then
picked
would
it up.
everybody been suspicious.
All right, on to item number 6. We're going to consideration resolution 2022-19 to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget by Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we talked about in the work session and provided in the packet, this is just to increase the transfer to the capital projects fund and to clean up some projects in the RDA fund. Just trying to get the budgets ready for year end. Hopefully we caught everything. So
Because it's good to catch stuff.
it is the first time.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Carden? If not, a motion would be in order. Council Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2022-19 to amend the fiscal year budget for 21 and 22 fiscal year 2021 and 2022 budget.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. This is a resolution. Ms. Marijuana, will you please poll the council?
Aye. Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
Counselor Stevens?
Aye.
Counselor Arnold?
All right, that passes unanimously. Now let's move on to item number 7. This is the resolution 2022-20, approving the non-reciprocal transfer of the resources of the water from the general fund to the water fund. Mr. Carden.
Okay, so this is just like we've done in the past. It's just declaring what those are worth, and it goes into our audited financial statements. And so it's just a requirement of state law, basically, so we can follow accounting guidelines. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments on this one? Councilor Arnold.
So just to state, and Mr. Haas left, right? Because he said he was disappointed that it wasn't said how. And Sean, you're still over there. This water is what's used, that we use to water the parks, leaks, unaccounted for waters.
So not unaccounted water. It's the water that we actually meter through the city's meters that's going to any city facility.
It's our water.
Okay.
So it's the city's water bill. It's what we're using in the parks. It's what we're using in this building. That's what we're using at the community center. It's everything that goes through, and we have them all metered. So we're just paying for our own water, per se, is what we're doing. The city actually uses for its own benefit as the city.
As we talked about this earlier, Stacy said he was disappointed he didn't know where that came from. That's the reason that I wanted that on the record.
It is the actual water that goes through the city meters going into the city facilities, city parks, city buildings, whatever the city owns that we're using water on.
And it did decrease. If you go back and look at last year, it was over 60,000. So the city did save like almost a third of the water that we consume over the last year. And the reason that those addresses may seem kind of weird, they're the service address. So that's where the meter would sit, just like any of your meters would sit at your address.
Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2022-20 as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion.
Do we have to have the dollar amount on there? On the motion?
Probably should put it in there.
And the amount of $80,000.
Second agree?
Second agrees.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Ms. Maragona, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
Counselor Merritt? Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, number 8, consideration of resolution 2022-21 to approve the 2022-2023 consolidated fee schedule. Mr. Carden or Mr. Brooks?
I can go ahead and handle this one since Cody's been going all night. The fee schedule for the public is just, we make a record of everything that we have and what we charge for things, and that's what this is. And so this is just an update of everything that we've included, whether it's our water rates or food trucks, anything that we've changed or increased during this current year or right now that we're changing and increasing. That's what all these are.
There was only about 4 changes, right?
Yeah, but there was a couple of sections fairly big on the water. I don't know if you guys want you guys are aware of it because you've been part of these discussions. I don't know if we need a further explanation on some of that for the public, or if we'll not worry about it. So, because we have discussed those things and why they are what they are. I mean, basically they're pass-alongs is what they are. Weaver Basin tells us how much water we can have and what it's going to cost us. And so if it goes up, we have to pass that on to the public. It's not like we're trying to make money off of this. We just try and pay for what we use and what they charge us for. So that's what that is. It's not like it's, I mean, we're just dictating what they've passed on to us. So,
Any questions or comments? Councilor Arnold?
And just to clarify, that goes for the sewer and garbage
correct.
increases.
Anything that was increased. So in the situation where Mr. Robinson's raising, and obviously this happens every year, every time gas goes up, his rates are going to go up because it costs him more to run those trucks. So it costs us more to have our garbage hauled. So it's just, you know, when the world's costs go up, our costs go up too. And that's what this is, just reflective of those things.
Councilor Arnold?
Move to approve resolution 2022-21 as stated within the packet.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This is a resolution. Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Councilor Hilton?
Aye.
Councilor Arnold?
Aye.
Councilor Stevens?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. I wasn't super excited to go through the budget stuff tonight, but I think I'm even less excited to go through this next item. Number 9, review the fraud and risk discussion for submission to the state auditor's office. Mr. Carden.
Okay, I'll do it super fast since we've all been through this before. So the state auditors, they've looked at stuff across county, across the state when frauds occurred. They came up with this list. Some of it's very arbitrary and people don't necessarily agree with, but this is their list. We scored low on it. There's a few things we can maybe do to do a little better, but we are fine with where we're at. So we just have to present it to you so you know that we are low risk of fraud occurring, and that shows up in our annual financial report audit on the state compliance report. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, that wasn't too bad.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and
Nothing. There's not an
it's
action.
just a discussion. Okay, just a review.
We just have to bring it to
Oh,
you guys.
darn it.
Okay.
This is my moment.
You got one more coming up.
Move to acknowledge.
Okay, we'll move on to item 10. Thank you for that brief summary of that. Number 10, consideration of resolution 2022-22, increasing the city's capitalization threshold, defining the financial reporting, what is considered a capital asset from $2,000 to $7,500.
And thank you. As we talked in the work session, this was originally set in 2004. We're just trying to increase it so that it makes accounting a little simpler for the city. And you guys are the ones that determine our accounting policies on some things. And so we felt like it was the best to have you guys formally in a resolution document this increase. So we're just asking that you increase it from
approve.
2.
Just ask you a quick question. In another county,
Motion's on the table.
in another life where I did accounting, we just used this as petty cash. Is that now? You used the term depreciation earlier. This is separate.
This is different. So like we don't use it for petty cash. So think of it like I buy a new laptop. If that laptop costs over $2,000, then I have to put it on my depreciation schedule and say, okay, this laptop's going to last 5 years. So then every year we use like a straight line.
For depreciable items.
Correct. And so it doesn't have anything to do with like tracking because we usually track other stuff other ways. It's just for financial reporting. So it just allows me, rather than tracking smaller items that are $2,000, which there's a whole lot more of now than there was in 2004, to just track like a little bigger stuff.
Okay.
So the city does have a good inventory way to track items. I mean, we're not just saying anything under $7,500 we're not going to keep track of.
Right.
It's just a financial.
It's saying that like anything over $7,500, like we care more about year in and year out, and we want to like allocate it to multiple years. So think about, so like instead of right now I'm tracking computers. With this, I'd just track like copy machines and above, which is more like what I feel like we care about. And I talked to our auditor and asked him if he cared if we raised it somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000, and he was like, "No, that's great." Like he, as an auditor, likes the more conservative, so he's like, probably like, yeah, 5,000, 7,000's great. And so 7,500 was kind of middle of the road, and we thought a good spot. So
Okay, we did have a motion. We can have other comments if we'd like, but we do have a motion on the table. Would anyone like to second that motion? We have a motion and a second from Councilor Arnold now. Any discussion on that? All right, this is another resolution. Ms. Mayor, will you please poll the council?
Councilor Merrill? Aye. Councilor Hilton? Aye. Councilor Stevens?
Aye.
Councilor Arnold?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Let's move on to our last item, number 11. This is a discussion regarding the July 5th, 2022 City Council meeting. Mr. Brooks?
As I mentioned in the work session, I put this on there for you guys to consider. You seem to bring this up every year at this time of the year and Christmas both. So we are pretty heavy in our schedules right now. I think it would be good, and Mike always wants meetings, so we got to keep him happy because most of the stuff is his. But in fact, I think all of it is. So that's the only reason why we'd be here. But to keep those things moving, it's probably good because some of those people aren't too happy when we don't. But it's up to you guys ultimately. We have, at least on the ones that I've been involved in, we've informed them that this is always a possibility if the council doesn't want to. It is the night after. And I think West Haven or one of them, theirs is 2 or 3 nights after, and they've already waived theirs. They're not going to meet. So it's up to you. If you want to be here, we'll be here. It's sixes for us. We get paid the same either way. So.
Any discussion? Councilor Stevens?
That's, it'll be in the new pay period where we have very well-paid council members. They can mosey on in here and actually do the job that they're being paid to do, very well paid to do. So yes, we should be here on the 5th. Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else?
Was I sarcastic enough?
That was very sarcastic.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Maybe I
One at a time. One at a time. Anybody else? Councilor Arnold?
I don't think we should ever cancel a meeting unless it's actually on the day, like if it's on the, we always change it on election day, just a day later. But when somebody's trying to do something through the council, it's super important that we're here. So, yeah, I wouldn't even bring this up unless, again, I would try to get a consensus not to bring this up to even talk about it, because it's too important for the applicants for the city to do this. And that wasn't sarcastic at all. That was
Just FYI, I've told several people to be here on July 5th because they're asking me when their item's going to be on the agenda, and I said it's going to be July 5th. And so there are several people already planning on being here, so I'm glad the discussion went this way. So,
I'm assuming that's a consensus.
so do we have a
everybody.
consensus to have our meeting? I agree. Yes, thank you very much. Very good. Okay, we are going to go to our comments section. City Council, any comments for this meeting?
Yeah, just a second.
Stevens?
Maybe I should throw this at, you know what? I'll send you an email from the mosquito abatement where they've put out a flyer for home use, and you can decide whether you want to attach it in the newsletter.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and pass it to Mr. Stone if
Okay.
you do.
And just FYI, the newsletter goes out a little earlier than you might think. Like I had to have my article in by 9 o'clock this morning or whatever for July. So they come up fast. And so that would be for the August one if we were trying to get that in. And it's always about by the 20th or it feels like, yeah. So
Good to know.
on that. Okay, very good. Any other comments from the city council? Anything from the city staff? Yes. Chief Shawley, happy birthday to this guy right here. I think we should sing.
Let's not.
Yeah.
Sing together.
Be on
No,
YouTube.
let's
It'll
not.
be there forever.
My grandbabies tried it, didn't work. I just wanted to address the ambulance thing real quick. I was a little concerned that it was a mistake. So a little background. When Riverdale City decided to run an ambulance, prior to that they were using Ace Ambulance, a private entity.
Sorry, just 1 second. We're not going to comment on this tonight, okay? You can make some comments, but we are not deciding or commenting at all on this, so.
I worked around and with Ace Ambulance. I rode with Ace Ambulance. It was a very poor service. Riverdale citizens were not receiving a good service. It then went into Roy and South Ogden as an option to use it. South Ogden decided to use it. It was also not providing a good service, and that was why Chief Hillen went away from having an outside agency running the ambulance service to Riverdale citizens. I can tell you right now, over the time period I've been here, that ambulance has had a tremendous impact to this city. We don't just use those ambulance providers. Some people think an ambulance is only EMTs. the people on the ambulance have all the same certifications. They function as firefighters when needed. We're going into the season that we use them the most, because if we have brush fires down on the riverbed, up on the hillside, that allows us to run a brush truck and a fire engine to protect the structures. If we don't have those crews to split, we can't do that. So that ambulance is also augmenting some of the fire opportunity that we have and the ability for me to manage different fire situations that without that I would not have. But above and beyond that, your ambulance service is providing a tremendous level of service. It's made a huge impact. And many times, most recently, because the call volume within Weber County, Riverdale's ambulance is the only ambulance available. Your next ambulance will be coming from an outside agency. We're seeing our ambulance guys take patients to the hospital that would normally have a paramedic with them, but there's not a paramedic available, and they're functioning at a higher level for that care and treatment of that patient all the way to the hospital, which is creating good outcomes. So the ambulance service to me was never a mistake and continues not to be. So
Thank you.
just
Can I
because
ask
it was
a
on
question?
video.
Okay,
We-
a point, I want a definition.
Definition.
Okay, we call the first responders a service, okay? They provide a service. Would you also classify the ambulance as a service in the
Absolutely.
same realm?
We utilize the funding that the state allows us to charge to the users to help offset some of the cost to provide a service to the citizens that have that service available to them. It's not a moneymaker. It is a service. It's still a public service coming into and around the city to give you the quickest response times during those emergencies.
So it's just like, okay, having.
Okay, and I can assure you that we're gonna have a long, hard discussion about the fire department, the ambulance, and the entire, fire service that we offer. And Chief Shawley will have all his numbers, and we'll grill him, and he'll provide us awesome answers, and it'll be a good one. But this is not the time right here. Any other city staff comments? Yeah, Rich Taylor.
Go ahead.
The hero of next month.
Easy, Mayor. Just wanted to take a quick minute to follow up on a couple Old Glory Days things. We have that coming up here in a couple weeks, and we're getting ready. And you guys are invited to participate in any and all that you would like to. But specifically, as it relates to the parade, we have received some parade applications from some city council members, and some we haven't. And it's really important that we get the parade application because there's a little section where you guys can have the MC read what you want read. And when you don't fill that out, it makes us really nervous. And then the second thing is just communicating about trucks and drivers. We have secured some trucks from Larry H. Miller that they're providing for the parade, for the use of the parade. Some city council members like to use their own vehicles, or elected officials, I guess, like their own vehicles and have their own drivers, and other ones want a vehicle but not a driver, or they want a vehicle and a driver. And we track down these drivers as volunteers to help you guys out. And the more lead time we have on that, the better outcome we're going to have. And so even if the parade application is too comprehensive for you, if you can just shoot me a quick email and just let me know what you'd like set at the parade, and if you need a truck and if you need a driver, that would help us out a ton. So thanks, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Well,
you
go ahead.
could say
Do
something.
you have something?
I do, but I'll say it after you.
So I would like something put on a future agenda for this. This is concerns your email that I got today. I don't know. I didn't look at the date, honestly. But I would like to have the candy removed to purchase for us to throw out. There's no reason why you should do that. And with our huge compensation that we get, I think it would be, we can afford our own, like Cody Hansen bought all kinds of bouncy balls and stuff like that. I buy my own every year in addition to the candy. So, I would like to see that if things are dispersed from the people that we can buy our own.
Okay. You guys let me know what you want to do.
That would be a budget discussion, right? That
Right.
would be for the tentative active budget. When that discussion comes up, that'll be on the
But he's
agenda.
already purchased it for this year.
Yeah.
It's
Right. But for the coming year, we have a budget that's
Sure.
we're gonna talk about, and that would be a great time to discuss that.
Yeah, so let me know what you guys want. Yeah, for sure.
I was just gonna tell you, in years past, I always turn that application right around, and I get it to you. I tell you who's driving, what I'm driving, and I get you the little script. But because this mayor job is kicking my butt, like, no joke, no sarcasm, like, I have not gotten the script to you, but I will get it turned in.
And we know you guys are going to be in the parade. We're planning on it. We got a place saved for you. It's just those few little details that there's a lot to worry about on the 4th, and the more lead time we have. But no, we appreciate you. One last thing I failed to mention is on the 4th. Well, we have the live entertainment. Well, we have the booths going on in the park and things. The fire department, by the first aid station, provides food for employees, elected officials. You're more than welcome to visit the booths and patronize those booths, but you're also invited to come over right out the back of the fire station there. So.
Right. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
He won't be there.
Do you want it mailed to you or to Miranda? The application, or does it matter?
Miranda's gone till the.
Miranda's out of town this week, so shoot it over to me and I'll take care of you. Okay.
Hey, thank you, Rich. Any other city staff comments? Mr. Douglas?
I would just like to say thank you to the council and the mayor tonight. I think it was probably one of the hardest decisions I've seen a council have to make.
Gavel that thing.
And
Hey, Mr. Douglas is talking.
I'm so sorry.
I was just saying, I just appreciate what you guys did tonight. I think it was gut-wrenching for you, and I think as a staff, we really appreciate the support that we've had always from the council, and I think tonight even speaks higher to that. So thank you.
That was actually worth being quiet for.
I wanted you to hear that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, really, sincerely, we appreciate
We
it.
meet tomorrow for the first time in 2 years as a staff, and we'll pass that on to them. We'll fill them in on everything that happened here. But, I echo what Sean said. I had something else that I thought of while I was in here, and it was a big deal, but you flustered me so much with that furniture discussion. Now all I can think about is sending Cody over there. You got Cody the 2nd and the 3rd before they meet again, so if you hurry and order $100,000 in furniture, it's sitting there, so we'll get it done really fast. So you approved it tonight, so we're taking advantage of it. I got 2 days right there to get it done. I'm just kidding you. You're all safe. I'll think of whatever it was.
Okay.
It must not have been that important, but it seemed big at the time, so.
I just want to reiterate that, so the people that I talked to today, I mean, I had lengthy discussions with 3 people today. All of them were hot as can be coming at me, and every single one of them went away in full understanding. It's like they weren't, I mean, with explanation, with, understanding and numbers, all out numbers, to put numbers to it. Everybody was like, you know what, it hurts because it's uncomfortable as all get out being up here and doing these things. But it really, when somebody calls you and you can just explain it, and it's only 3, but, it was 3 today. So, I mean, they were fine. They were on board. And I mean, you get Stacy ramping people up on Facebook with, just 40% and 100% and sewer board, and we have so much control over the sewer board. I mean, they don't even listen to Braden, and he's.
Yeah, I'm on it. Okay. I just had one quick comment, and I thought I'd recognize Mr. Eggett while he's here, and all his peers are here with him. We had a kind of a cool thing happen this last Friday. The Ogden-Weber Chamber of Commerce hosted a bus tour for their Board of Governors. Now, this isn't those spikers, guys. This is the Board of Governors. These are the heads of the banks and the heads of, like, all kinds of big stuff. And so we did a bus tour, and they said, okay, we're going to stop in a couple of different places. They said, we're going to stop in Riverdale. We're going out to Northrop Grumman, and we're going to go out to West Haven. We're going to see some things. And they said, Mayor Mitchell, will you get some stuff together? So I leaned on Mike, said, hey, get me some stuff. We had a packet. The Riverdale section was way better than anybody else's section, okay? We stopped by Cheddar's. And these guys, believe it or not, had no idea what was going on in Riverdale. They were blown away. Like, I talked about Shake Shack. I talked about Cheddar's. I talked about all the things that are going on. John Paris, I talked about Fizz, Take 5. Shopko's got a possible tenant, So then we drove up on the West Bench, and we had a nice layout of what the New America First is going to look like. We talked about Ted Heaps. We talked about the Motel 6. We talked about all this stuff, about UTA, about possible I-15 access. They were like, whoa, they were literally blown away. I mean, the whole rest of the trip, every time I got off the bus and I wanted to go look at Northrop Grumman or see this stuff, or I want to see all this stuff, there's just random people coming up there like, that was amazing. I had no idea Riverdale was doing all that stuff. Like, who's in charge? Who's the community development guy, you know? And I gave him Mike's stuff, and it was just, they were blown away. And so, but he came through just in spades with that packet. And so I know he gets a little flack about scheduling these meetings, but he is hopping. Like, that guy is hopping. Riverdale's hopping, and he's nonstop scheduling meetings for me, for other people. And anyway, thank you, Mike. Like, you were doing a lot, and you really shined through that. So thank you for that. So.
Good job. That's awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
With nothing else, I guess we still got to have.
We still have an
don't we?
RDA, yeah. But
Well,
you
we
can
at
get
least
out of
adjourn
this meeting.
one. So, okay, motion to adjourn.
You don't even need to do that. Remember, we talked about that. You can just adjourn it.
Yeah, that's right.
You can just
do it.
gavel.
Yeah,
gavel.
gavel that thing.
your
So,
gavel.
all right, this meeting's adjourned. Okay, let's go RDA real quick. We're gonna take any breaks? People doesn't matter. Like, what do you
These should
guys
move
think?
pretty fast because these are not controversial
Let's
or
move.
anything. So.
Say for
Rich.
yeah, Rich, I just need to visit just briefly on an unrelated issue.
Ooh,
No.
Hey,
This is,
are you compensated?
I'll send you the first couple pictures and tell me if if you want to visit, and we'll do it, maybe we can do it over the phone.
I'm good, whatever.
all right. Let's go into this thing here. Let's start our Riverdale City RDA board meeting, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Please let the record show that all board members are here with the exception of board member Hanson, who is excused. We now have a time for public comment. This is an opportunity to address the Riverdale RDA, Redevelopment Agency, regarding your concerns or ideas. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and reports. The RDA tax increment payment report, Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Hopefully this will be brief. If you have any questions, let me know. Annually we do this. This is our increment reporting of our summary of increment reporting payments to the developer, specifically Boyer on this one. This is for the 550 West RDA. It's the only active area we currently have that has increment payment schedule required. We're in year 14, so you'll see me do this one more time next year, and then that should be the end of that as far as the reporting on that area. You can see that we paid per the increment summary $169,714. It was budgeted at $210, so we're well below that estimate. You'll see following the executive summary, the quick just accounting summary, the letter that was sent out to Boyer, and then you'll see the actual breakdown of what was the paid in 2022 for tax year 2021. So you'll see that it shows the personal property increment, the real property increment, and then the calculations that we're obligated to pay per the development agreement for that area to Boyer. Interesting thing to note there is Boyer is still getting the increment payment, but no longer owns the property. So think about that. That's kind of interesting, right?
That's not fair.
That's how it's set up with how they sold the real estate to the new owners. So anyway, they do get the benefit of that agreement. So I don't know if there's any other questions, but that's the long and short of that report, unless you have anything more for me.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. We don't have any consent items for tonight. We'll move on to E, action items. Number 1, public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the adoption of the final Riverdale RDA budget for fiscal year 2022-23 and amending the final. Oh, let's just do these one at a time. So with that, we would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do you have a question, board member
do I
Arnold?
have the right?
You want the right RDA?
It's under consent items.
No, you have the wrong one.
June 21st?
I have nothing under consent.
Oh, no, I got June 7th.
Okay,
Never mind.
no problem. All right, so did we have a motion
I
to
had a
open the
motion.
public hearing?
Yep.
And we need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now open. With no comments, we would need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed. We now can have a public hearing on amending the final Riverdale RDA budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. We need a motion to open that public hearing.
Moved.
Motion in a couple of seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Seeing none, the public hearing is now open to amend the final Riverdale RDA budget for 2021-22.
Seeing none, we will need a motion to close that public hearing.
So moved.
Second. We have two motions and a second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. We'll now consider a resolution R 2022-01, amending the final Riverdale RDA budget for 2021 and 2022. Mr. Carden.
Thank you, Mayor, or thank you, Chairman. So the only changes here are like we talked about in the other meeting. So we increased the amount for projects within both the Riverdale Road and the 550 West RDA funds. So just a couple of cleanup entries for the amended budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Counselor Arnold, or sorry, Board Member Arnold.
Motion to approve Resolution R 2022-01, amending the final Riverdale RDA budget for 2021-2022.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, or let's see, it's a resolution, so let's poll the RDA board, please.
Mr. Hilton?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Mr. Arnold?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. That must be the first resolution of the year, I guess. I guess that number's correct. So, okay. Now, item number...
Checked that.
You did double check it. That's why I kind of paused. I was like, first resolution of the year, huh? Okay. Consideration of R 2022-02, adopting the final Riverdale RDA budget for 2022-23. Mr. Carden.
Thank you. So as we talked in the work session, nothing has changed on this final budget. So it's the same as the tentative. And we just need to get it adopted. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Arnold.
Move to approve Resolution R 2022-02, as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the board?
You guys are fast.
Keep up. Yeah.
I am. Mr. Stevens?
Aye.
Monroe? Aye. Mr. Hilton?
Aye.
Mr. Arnold?
Okay, that passes unanimously. And that concludes our action items. And now we would just need a motion to adjourn.
Don't need a motion.
Oh, sorry. Oh, comments. I skipped right over comments. Board Member Arnold.
Just a question. Did we ever get the accounting for the RDA that when Shake Shack and the Katrubis's were here, we had some number issues that we were going to try and resolve. Did we ever get those resolved or?
Number issues,
So, yeah, so we got an opinion back from the RDA attorney.
Oh, okay.
And the answer is it depends, right?
Yeah.
So depending on what goes in there, like if it's housing related, then we can probably use some funds. But if it's not, then we probably can't.
Yeah.
Right.
We're proceeding as if we're going to have it, and we're going to be able to pull that off.
So
looking
we're
good.
working that direction, and we think we can make it
I don't know the numbers,
work.
and I don't care. Honestly, I don't have it.
We're planning on it.
Anyway, I know we had a big question mark out there, so.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't.
Ironically, even though that's our first ordinance or resolution of the year, most of our time as a staff lately has been RDA stuff. Like, it's been unbelievable. But a lot of that stuff won't come to fruition yet. But, I mean, we're getting close on a couple of them. But it's been a very time-consuming year for RDA stuff.
And then, what are we doing with the sewer and the power lines up behind Maverick going in?
We'll discuss all that.
Sometime.
That's being resolved, too.
Probably the July 5th.
Right.
July 5th.
Oh, okay.
Big time meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Be fireworks.
Your
Huh?
comments.
It's going to be crazy.
Maybe have fireworks that night too. Rich? 2 nights in a row. 2 nights in a row. Get your dogs in. Okay. Any other comments? We need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Great job, guys.